Okay, guys, this is chapter 7, global management. I'm just going to run you through the slides that I believe are important and will help you with your homework. So, global management, you can look through these slowly if you like. We're going to talk about the impact of global business, trade barriers, and trade agreements. So, global business is the buying and selling of goods and services by people from different countries. So, we used to not do so much of this and isn't so important to learn. However, now with the internet, it is easy to sell goods and buy goods from overseas. So now everybody has to learn about it. The impact of global businesses. We have multinational corporation is a corporation that owns businesses in 2 or more countries. So McDonald's, Coca-Cola. A lot of businesses now are in 2 or more different countries, so it has to be more than just the United States and Canada. Direct foreign investment is a method of investment in which a company builds a new business or buys an existing business in a foreign country. So they don't actually move their business to a different country, but they buy the business that's already in the separate country. So foreign investment in the United States, the United Kingdom does most of it. Most of the business with us. Germany invests, France, Canada, Netherlands, they're all the top investors in the United States. So they buy United States businesses. U.S. buys most of the businesses outside of the United States from the United Kingdom as well. Canada, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Switzerland, and so on. Trade barriers, so we have tariffs, and tariffs are we have tariff and non-tariff barriers. A tariff is a tax. So a tax barrier is anything that comes overseas back and forth is going to be taxed on imported and exported goods. So if we send goods overseas, they'll probably tax us. And if they send goods to us, we'll probably tax them, sort of thing. So that's a tariff. Non-tariff barriers are quotas, meaning only so many items can come over, so much can come over back and forth overseas. Voluntary export restraints, government import standards. If you remember the mad cow disease, government put a restriction on cows coming into Canada because of the disease. So that would be an import standard. Government subsidies, customs, valuation, and classifications. Obviously, some things can't come over the borders, depending on what countries you're going to and from. There are trade agreements between certain groups of countries. United States, Canada, and Mexico has a North American Treaty Agreement, and that is basically things travel pretty freely between the United States and Canada, especially. They have the Maastricht Treaty of Europe, which all the European countries can trade pretty freely amongst each other. And we'll look at all these individually. The World Trade Organization, it gets to be kind of tricky when you go dealing with overseas, because if something legally goes wrong, who has jurisdiction? Where do we go to court? Do we go to court in Canada or the United States? They have completely different laws. So what we have is the World Trade Organization that basically centralizes all the world trade, and it's our one go-to person or company kind of organization, I guess, that any business can go to, or any country can go to even, to get standard laws on shipping, imports, and exports. So this is the European Treaty, and it basically is with all the European countries, 25 of them total. And they have pretty open, simple trade among the member nations. The NAFTA agreement is the North American Free Trade Agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And it eliminates most taxes and most barriers between imports and exports within those countries. Then you have ASEAN and APEC. They are respectively with each one of those countries listed. How to go global. We're going to talk about global consistency or local adaptation. So global consistency is when a multinational company has offices and plants in different countries and use the same rules and guidelines through all of their different businesses, through all of their different countries. And local adaptation is when a company is overseas, but it for each group overseas. So McDonald's, say in China, would have different laws and corporation rules than McDonald's in the United States and McDonald's in Canada, and so on and so forth. So you can either stay consistent with the corporation rules, or you can adapt to each local culture that they jump into. Here's a pretty good example. The blend of consistency and adaptation makes Pop Idol TV show format successful around the world. So they stay consistent. It's like the American Idol here in the United States. They stay consistent through the countries, but they also adapt to each personal preference of each country as well. Fair and safe working conditions in foreign factories. This is the doing the right thing slide. So we want to make sure there's no forced labor or child labor. Provide a safe, healthy working environment. Respect the right of employees to freedom of association and collective bargaining, and provide legally required benefits. And these are just ethical issues. Guys, they're not laws. In some countries you can have child labor. However, it is on the ethical side of things that we want to venture, as far as being from the United States, that we try to keep things the same on a legal standpoint. So forms of global business, we have exporting, cooperative contracts, strategic alliances, wholly owned affiliates, and global new ventures. The advantages of exporting is it's less dependence on home market sales. So if we export goods, then our target market and our customer base just expanded greatly. And there's also a greater degree of control over research, design, and production decisions. Basically, more people buying your product means more opinion on what's popular and what's not. The disadvantages of exporting: many exports are subject to being taxed with tariffs and non-tariff barriers as well. Transportation costs can increase the price of products, so obviously getting them overseas is going to raise the cost of the product, so they'll be more expensive when they get there. Companies may depend on foreign importers for product distribution. So cooperative contracts, we can license and franchise. So a licensing is a domestic company receives royalty payments for allowing another company to produce its product. So you can sell your product license to, like, if Subway sold its recipe, or Pizza Hut sold its recipe to another country's person that wanted to open one, then they would just sell their product to sell to someone else. So when you go in and see Nikes in different stores in the mall, they have all sold their licensing. They're all licensed to sell that brand. Franchising would be more like the Subway. You basically buy a business and run it as your own, but you're using the name of the company. The advantages to licensing: it allows companies to earn profits without investing more money. The licensor invests in a production equipment and facilities, so they're making all the products. And it helps companies avoid tariff and non-tariff barriers. The disadvantages to licensing: licensor gives up control over quality of the product and the service sold by the foreign license. So they have to sell things exactly how the licensor has it. They can't be creative in any way. And licensees can eventually become competitors. So franchising advantages: it's a fast way to enter foreign markets. So if you wanted to open a Subway or a Pizza Hut or a franchise, it's really fast. You don't have to come up with your own spiel. You can have all the advantages of a brand name. And it's a good strategy when a company's domestic sales have slowed. The disadvantages: they lose control. Franchisors lose control. You don't have any control over marketing. You don't have any control over what you sell. You have to sell the franchise brand. So franchising success may be culture bound. There's the possibilities of strategic alliances. and joint ventures. A strategic alliance is an agreement in which companies combine resources, costs, and risks, technology, and people. So the example is between Fujifilm and Xerox is a strategic alliance example. A joint venture is a Fujifilm and strategic alliance. I guess they can be considered both. But it's basically a strategic alliance in which the existing companies collaborate to form a third independent company. Oops. So, wholly owned affiliates, build or buy. The advantages of the parent company receives all of the profits and complete control. So if you own your wholly owned affiliate company, then you have complete control of what you sell and everything you make. Your profits are yours. The disadvantage is the expense of building new operations or buying existing businesses. Loss can be immense if the venture fails. So you also not only absorb all the profits, but you absorb all the loss. New ventures in global, quick, reliable air travel. Now we can fly for pretty cheap. Low cost in communications. Instead of calling long distance, we have email and that kind of thing. Critical mass of experienced business people. So 2 heads are better than one philosophy. Common factors of global ventures. The global vision is developed and communicated. Several foreign markets are entered at the same time. So where do we go global? We can dabble into these markets. We have growing markets, purchasing power, comparison of a standard set of goods and services in different countries, and then more means greater growth potential. So the more places we have to go, the greater we can grow. Qualitative factors. Degree of global competition, the number and quality of companies already in the market. So we have more competition since going global has become such a big thing. We have qualitative and quantitative factors. Qualitative being quality, workforce quality, company strategy. Quantitative factors, the kind of facility, tariff and non-tariff barriers, anything that's financial, exchange rates, or transportation and labor costs. All of those are factored into global enterprise. The world's best cities for businesses is an FYI slide. North America, we have Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Phoenix, Houston, and Minneapolis, St. Paul. They also list cities in Latin America, Europe, and Asia as well. Minimizing political risk. So we have political uncertainty, risk of major changes in political regimens. Political uncertainty or policy uncertainty, risk associated with changes in laws and government policies directed at businesses. And we have strategies of avoidance, control, and cooperation. Becoming aware of cultural differences. This is kind of an important aspect. It's the same idea, just per country of national culture. So the set of shared values and beliefs that affect the perceptions, decisions, and behavior of the people from a particular country. In Saudi Arabia, store mannequins must not have heads or limbs that would indicate gender. And that's just the culture of their country. So when we go over to set up a clothing store in Saudi Arabia, we're going to want to respect their culture. It's very, very important to do so. There's been a lot of marketing flubs that have happened because of just miscommunications in the culture department, such as in Australia, the thumbs up sign is the equivalent of flipping someone off in the United States. So we want to be aware of those things. Cultural dimensions, power, distance, individualism, masculinity, and femininity. Of course, if you've taken any Spanish classes, there are masculine words and feminine words. Certain words to use around a female, certain words to use around a male. Uncertainty and avoidance, short-term and long-term orientation. These are all things that are culturally different anywhere you go. Recognize culture differences is really important for multiple reasons, so we don't offend anyone, and so our product becomes popular. We need to decide how to adapt your company to those differences, and do not base adaptations on outdated and incorrect assumptions about a company's culture, because the American culture has changed throughout the years, as will every other country's culture. And when we prepare for an international assignment, we have language and cross-cultural training, spouse and family, dual career issues. An expatriate is someone who lives and works outside his or her native country. Sometimes this happens. Sometimes you can be from the United States, but you live and work in Canada because that's where your job is based. At that point, you'd be called an expatriate. There are training, language training and cross-cultural training. You have documentary training, depending on where you're going. If you're going to Latin America, Europe, that kind of thing. Cultural simulation. We go through scenarios in which you would be put in different role-playing instances, and then field experiences where you would go intern or spend time in another country. Spouse, family, and dual careers. We have adaptability screening and cross-cultural training, so they make it to where they're sure that you can survive your family, either move your family or survive telecommunicating or traveling back and forth to be with your family. If it's something you really want to do, work overseas, then there are ways that you can be trained to do so successfully. So, and these are some of the what really works cross-cultural training: self-development, psychological well-being and self-development training is 79% successful. Fostering relationships with native citizens, so maybe spending a summer abroad, that kind of thing, 74% success rate. Accurate cultural perceptions, 74%, and rapid adjustment, 74%, and on-the-job performance, 71%. And that is your global management for week 7.